maybe. I mean, I also
The sets, I
noticed,
can't make heads or tails of the sets of that movie either.
I mean, this makes me a little bit uncomfortable to say this out loud, but I do feel like when you look at pictures of Richard Curtis, it kind of looks like Martin Freeman of the future. Like Martin Freeman,
That's
if he could time travel, could be Richard Curtis. So I imagine that there's a little bit of wish fulfillment in casting a guy who looks like his younger self in this part.
So let me talk about the relationship that I think is probably the most problematic, but again, I'm going to say, while problematic, I at least understand it as love or attraction, which is Alan Rickman and his secretary.
Oh my god, thank you. I was gonna say that too, that of all the couples in this movie, they're sort of the most realistic. Is that weird?
No, it's like there is something there that's like a sexual energy. There's like that little moment of flirtation when he calls her outside to say like what she wanted for Christmas. I like, I know we're not supposed to want him to do that, and I don't really want him to do that, but I recognize it. Like I recognize, like, oh, that's a flirtation, that's an interesting flirtation. But the problem with that relationship is, in my opinion, what's so wrong with his wife? Because they also seem to have like a pretty good thing too. They don't seem broken. And I think that that's something interesting too, and I wanted to break that down with you as well. Like, I like showing Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson as being like love that has stood the test of time, or has been like, what is love that has been together for a decade? Love isn't always just about new love. You know, new love is boring because we all can tell what new love is. But like, long love is an interesting story to tell too.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're like, it's a little.
Well, Laura Linney and her brother too.
Okay, brother. Okay, but let's talk about
Right. I
love.
mean, if we're talking about like romantic love, okay,
Yeah.
I wanted to.
Her
well,
brother
because,
tries to like hit her in the face. Yeah.
oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
That scene is like.
Yeah.
There's
But,
a
like,
lot of problematic stuff.
Right, but like
But it
when
makes me
Emma
laugh,
Thompson
that's
and
what-
Alan Rickman, when they are the only old love, and this movie is basically saying old love cannot last. When like hot secretary comes into the picture, hot secretary, who I will say is so over the top, like sitting around
Oh
with her
my
legs
God.
spread open in that's not even comfortable looking.
No, she
Like-
seems like she's like she is trying to, like, almost like she was sent here to seduce him. Like,
Oh my
like,
god, yeah, like the Terminator. That's what I was thinking. She's
Yeah.
like the Terminator
a
of
sex
fucking.
Terminator, yeah.
Yeah.
She really is. I mean, and it's like, I at least get why she likes him, or I don't even really know. I mean, but I guess they work together, so there's like some connection and unrequited love, and again, we're not seeing the meat of any relationship. It is the Bachelor of rom-coms. It's like we're not seeing really anything more than like the biggest stereotype of these characters. Can we talk about the other love that I think is good, which is, but really doesn't really pay off until the end, but Bill Nye and his manager.
Yes, I was terrified that you were going to say the guy who goes to America to get laid by girls who think British accents are hot.
Oh, I mean, I'm not even putting that in my love. Like, that doesn't even get in the love. That doesn't even get in the love. Like, that's not even part of the discussion, I don't think, because that is just, like, that's Jacob's Ladder. That dude died on a plane crash. That dude was on a 9/11 flight. That can't be anything but that. I mean, and by the way, they got, like, the hottest, like, Maxim cover girl models for that sequence. It's so outlandish. It's so, like, what's so crazy about it is, like, this movie is fueled by, like, every male ego thing, like, oh my gosh, I'll go to Minnesota, I'll go to Milwaukee, and I'll get laid by, you're like, there's no reality in this movie whatsoever, and like, why is that, like, why is his fantasy, like, so fucking bonkers? Like, it's like, you know, it's so, like, that is...
Well, okay, there is
Yeah.
truth in it. I would say that a British accent makes a man 15% hotter. Like, I
Sure.
get the scene where they're
Sure.
sitting around asking him to say straw.
Right.
What do you call that?
Bottle.
Bottle. What about this?
Straw.
Straw.
Table.
Table. Same. But yes, it is bonkers that they only have one bed to share between 4 girls and that they're too poor to like buy pajamas, but they at least have money to go out and like be at the bar.
Amy, I mean that, like,
It's also a
what you're
two-story
describing
house.
there is
They live in a
you are
two-story
describing
house.
a porn fantasy. Like that is a letter to Penthouse. Like that is doing nobody any like great, fine. But again,
It's a
this movie is a male
two-story
fantasy. This
house. How
Yes.
do you have a 2-story house in a
Well, they have the upper. They're probably like a mother-daughter, and they rent the upper. Again, it is bonkers, and I also feel like this guy doesn't come across smooth at all. Like there is something to be said for. And again, I'm not trying to rewrite it, but like a nebbishy, more quiet. Like if Martin Freeman was like, I just got broken up by my girlfriend, I don't have anybody, and then he goes to Milwaukee, and then like all these girls find him attractive, and he like feels that that's exciting. This guy is like wearing a shirt that says like, I like the fuck, and he's like, I need to go and get, I have a bag full of condoms. Like he's like just a walking dick. And like personified, and everyone's like there's his personality is like ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not charming at all. I don't think.
I mean, maybe he is part of the film's, I would say, deserved at this time anti-Americanism. I mean, because
Okay.
basically what? You have like 3 different American characters in here. Laura Linney is fine. She's nice. The movie doesn't hate her, but she is also like the character who winds up totally alone and doesn't even manage to make it to like the airport scene at the very end. It's just sort of like, that guy didn't date you. He left because like you had to go see your brother, and now you don't even get a happy ending. Like she's the
No,
only
they
one
come
who's
back.
not
Don't they come back on Christmas? Like they have like a little moment on Christmas Eve,
he
right?
like says Merry Christmas and then leaves her alone. So it doesn't go anywhere. So like that American is punished, and then like there's these dumb American girls who will just sleep with anybody with an accent. Like there's actually they were at the airport scene, Shannon Elizabeth and Denise Richards, and they like walked up to Hugh Grant and introduced themselves. And Shannon Elizabeth apparently said to Hugh Grant, "I am so embarrassed that I dressed this way on camera." And Hugh Grant said, "It's my favorite."
Oh, well, I guess it's
Charming humor. Maybe.
charming. Yeah, sure.
I mean, charming.
Boy, oh
and
boy.
then-
Remember that? I mean, I remember being such a Hugh Grant fan. I think that came out around 9 Months, which was a movie that I really liked when I saw it back then. And that was such a scandal. We have really, way to go us. We have really upgraded our scandals. I mean, that is nothing now. That's a blip on the radar. That wouldn't even make like network news for a half a day now anymore. Picking up a sex worker. That wouldn't even rate anymore.
Man, I remember that happened, and then a few years later I moved to LA and I drove by the intersection where it happened, and I felt a little bit of a thrill of glamour. Like, oh,
I gotta see what that
LA, glamour happens here. It was by a donut shop at the time. And then there is, of course, the ultra-American, Billy Bob Thornton as the President of America, who shows up just to sexually harass the Prime Minister's secretary in like the fastest sexual harassment scene I've ever seen. It's like Hugh Grant isn't in the room with him. Hugh Grant leaves to get a manila folder, and I counted it. It takes Billy Bob Thornton 20 seconds to sexually harass Natalie, his secretary. After which Hugh Grant gets to give his like big dramatic kind of like, "I'll show you America" speech.
Yeah.
I fear that this has become a bad relationship. A relationship based on the president taking exactly what he wants and casually ignoring all those things that really matter to Britain. We may be a small country, but we're a great one too. A country of Shakespeare, Churchill, Beatles, Sean Connery, Harry Potter. David Beckham's right foot.
Is the one bad relationship in this movie that is actually called out as a bad relationship. Even though
Right.
people are like cheating on each other left and right.
But by the way, it's only called out as a bad relationship once Billy Bob Thornton, like, and I'm using this term not because I believe it, but I'm going to simplify it, touched his property, right? Like, basically, if Billy Bob Thornton did not touch Natalie, there would have been no speech. It was like, you touched my girl, now I'm mad at you. So even that is like, the big speech is also coming from a totally wrong-headed place.
Yeah, and also the person who like apologizes for it, the only person who apologizes for it is Natalie, the person who got assaulted at the end of the movie right before they finally get together.
I just wanted to say,
I'm so sorry about that day. I mean, I came into the room and he stood towards me and there was a fire and he's the President of the United States and nothing happened, I promise. I just felt like such a fool because I think about you all the time. I think you're the man I really...
oh wow, it really was just round the corner.
By the way, this scene, this whole interaction of like Hugh Grant, boyish Prime Minister, huffing up against like bullying, vaguely Southern American president, of course, was like paralleling Tony Blair and his relationship with George Bush at the time, which put Tony Blair himself in a weird position. Like people were like, be more like Hugh Grant in Love Actually, which is a very weird thing to say to a person who's like actually a politician. They're like, stand up to him. Hugh Grant did it like right after he danced to Jump. Like, why don't you do it? And Blair finally had to give like a speech where he said, I know that there's a bit of us that would like me to do Hugh Grant in Love Actually and tell America where to get off. But the difference between in real life, there's the next day, the next year, the next lifetime to contemplate on ruinous consequences of easy applause. But he actually had to address it. Address the fact that this fantasy movie made him look like weak for not being as tough on George Bush as Hugh Grant was on Billy Bob Thornton.
And it's interesting because this movie is a post 9/11 film, but they are parodying Bill Clinton. That is not George Bush. Like, he is dressed, Billy Bob is dressed as Bill Clinton, like that tie, that look. I mean, he doesn't look like him, but that's what I think they're going for there. They're not going for George Bush.
Well, it's like a mashup. It's like a mashup. I think it's like the politics of George Bush.
Most confounding.
Are we still talking about relationships?
We are. I mean, well, that's what the whole movie is about, and we have to kind of break them all down. I mean, the other one that is really tough for me is Liam Neeson, who I think is doing... I mean, look, everybody in this movie is actually doing a great job. I have no... I have issues with their characters. I have no issues with them as actors. And, like, Liam Neeson is a grieving stepfather, and I had a real issue with this, and I want to know if it stuck out to you. Like, they really wanted to hammer home stepson. Why stepson? Like, why not just make it his son? This is his wife, and this is his son. But they get and when Claudia Schiffer shows up, and it's not really Claudia Schiffer, it's just somebody. I mean, it is Claudia Schiffer. Pretending to look like Claudia. Whatever. The idea being that he immediately says, she's like, oh, I know your son, stepson. Like I'm not spoiled. I didn't drop my seat yet, so I still gotta live right here. Like that. Don't worry about that one. That's my dead wife's. Like, I'm a stepdad. It was such a weird. There's so many weird choices that this movie makes, and that being a giant. Like, it's just why? Why overcomplicate the situation? Like, that's a stepson, and why is he always saying stepson? It's like
That's true. Why? Is it because it would be too weird if it was his son, since all they do is talk about chicks? I mean, is it because... As I say it out loud, it suddenly seems more creepy to obsess over a child's love life if you're not blood related to him. Because that's literally all they talk about. They watch Titanic together. And then there's kind of that skit-up scene where they're watching Titanic together. They're doing the arms thing on the couch, and then the little kid tries to fall back into Liam's arms, and he lets him fall down, and he says, "You trust me, fool?" Which he's pranking his kid, his stepson, whose mom just died, by not even catching him when they're watching Titanic together to do the trust fall. And I had a thought watching this movie. I'm like, here I am watching a movie that is beloved by so many, and that I consider to be a part of
just a complete warping of time. I mean, nothing makes sense. Like, you see the guy who is lighting the porno in the wedding, but then he's lighting the porno, it seems like right afterwards. The son is complaining about this girl not liking him, and he's like, let's go watch a movie, but it seems like it's like really late at night. So it's like, are they watching a 3-hour movie like at midnight? Like, he can't sleep. Like, the timing of everything on this movie, you know, for the fact that Bill Nye is recording this song like December 1st to make, like, it's a produced track and they're racing. Like, Christmas albums come out in Halloween, but again, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that, but this movie is egregious about saying, fuck you, time makes no sense here. Like, it's like, because you will cut from scene to scene, it seems like it's all happening, I guess, like within the week, but it is confounding.
2 of these couples get engaged in 1 month. 2 of these couples get engaged in 1 month. Jenny get engaged, and also Colin Firth and Aurelia, they get engaged in like 1 month, which is also not how time works either, right? I mean, I guess it's kind of how time worked in like movies that we used to like. Remember we used to talk about this in like romantic comedies from the 30s?
Yeah.
How Katharine Hepburn would meet a guy and then they'd just like get engaged and go get married the next day.
Yeah.
I guess this is trying to bring back the classic romantic comedy in that way. That this is a normal way of being. Are we the weirdos? Is it weird to take time to get engaged?
I don't know. There's just so much here, and we can get into and like, I guess this is the conversation that we have to agree to have. Yes, we can pick apart some of the shit that really is stupid, but I think it's other ideas and bigger ideas, which are much more like, wait, what? Like, I'll give all into my rom-com mind and not question like simple simple logic, but I will not give over to some of these larger issues. And the first one is, for me, the way that they deal with Liam Neeson's dead wife. Like, okay, first of all, Emma Thompson is like, get over it, no one likes a wuss. And I guess she's being playful with him, but
it doesn't sound that playful.
No, it's like, get over your dead wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and everyone's like amping him up, like, well, he's talking about Claudia Schiffer, and then again, then he meets a woman who looks just like Claudia Schiffer, and he's like, now I'm in love with you. Wait, hold on. You didn't talk to her. She just looks like someone you like. She has no authority in this world. Like, she basically is like, I'll see you again. Why? You have had nothing has connected any of these characters, and yet it's the way that I used to think in like middle school. Like, I like that girl, she's gonna like me. It's like, it's such a egotistical way of looking at love. It's like, it's so one-sided. But I found that the dealing with the death of this woman to be really, I mean, I think Liam Neeson may have made it too good, because the gravitas that he brings to like his grieving is so interesting, but yet the way that he's so lax with his stepson is so light. It's like, this boy just lost his mother, and you're like, what's your problem? Oh, he's in his room. It's like, help him a little bit. Like, you know, like laughing at him, like, oh, your life is over. My wife dies. Like, yeah, so did his mom. Like, it's a weird, like the levels are off. It's constantly like, just like, I'm like, why is this level up so high and this level down so low?
I wonder how long they were married. Like, because she has a full-grown, a fullish grown son. He's like, what, 11, I think? I think the actor's 13 playing 11. So, I don't know who his dad was or why his dad doesn't want custody.
Come back, yeah.
Maybe he's a widow. Maybe she was a widow. Who knows? Maybe there's like a whole chain of like widows marrying widowers here in this world. But like, whatever the case, maybe they got married like a year ago or something, and he barely knows the kid. Could that make sense? That's why he's like, I guess we rode down together.
But where's the human Like, where's the human spirit? Because, I mean, they also set up in the movie that he had a long time to prepare for her death, and I think that was a line that was kind of thrown in, like, yeah, I've been grieving for a while, so, like 2 weeks I'm gonna be okay. Because he said, like, we had a long time to prepare for this, and she gave me different rules that I had to do for the funeral. So even if he met her within a year, it's like,
Maybe, yeah. Did he marry her because she was dying to get to the kid?
I mean, that is honestly, to me, like, I know we can break down all the stalker bullshit in this movie, but that to me, I'm like, what are we trying to do here? Just make it a single dad with a son with the wife. You don't have to make her fresh. You don't have to make her corpse, super fresh. It's like she literally is freshly dead. And everyone's not giving him space or helping him or even cooking meals for the guy.
No, I mean, I think that Emma tells him that people hate sissies like a week after she dies. And also, to make it a little weirder, the woman in the picture that we see at the funeral was actually like a woman that Richard Curtis knew, that he thought was just really pretty. She's a filmmaker herself, but she's not an actress. And he just asked her if she would be the dead woman. I think it sounds like a woman that he kind of had a crush on. And he was like, will you just send me a bunch of beautiful pictures of yourself to play the dead woman in this movie? I mean, it feels a little bit creepy, that I get the sense that this is a woman that Richard Curtis had a crush on. He was like, give me pretty pictures of yourself. You will be this dead woman here in
I will be the real-life Andrew Lincoln.
And I will say that maybe sounds like kind of crazy talk. However, Richard Curtis is also a man who, when he was younger, had a crush on a girl, just a crush as far as I know, who, like, never dated him and wound up marrying a man named Bernard. And in every single movie he has ever done, he has written a jerk character named Bernard. The Bernard character in this movie is Emma Thompson's son, who most of his stuff was cut out, which I definitely want to get into because his stuff is amazing. But his name was Bernard, and he was like a terrible son. There's a moment where like she's joking around with her husband, and she's like, "Well, at least we have one good kid," meaning the girl. But really, some woman that didn't date you marries another man, and you punish that man forever by using his name as a jerk. I will believe that there's a lot of anger in this film. There's a lot of anger,
yes.
actually, in Love Actually.
By the way, actually is said 22 times in this film. Now that you said this, it actually clarifies something for me. I wonder if like all these male characters are just avatars for Richard Curtis, because what you're describing is very much Andrew Lincoln's character. Andrew Lincoln goes to photograph the wedding, of his best friend, and basically makes like a Yank Bank reel for Keira Knightley. Like, by the way, it's not even like, they're not even like super beautiful shots. It's really close-ups on her eyes and lips, and I mean it's like, I know people get all bent out of shape about the cue cards, like, and that being stalkery, but that to me is scarier. Like a guy just making a video, like on eyes and nose and mouth. I'm like, ooh,
Well, I will
boy.
say, like, I mean, based on the art in Andrew's gallery, which is all just like pictures of dicks and pictures of boobs and pictures of butts, we're very lucky that his wedding video wasn't just for boobs. But I want to say you are absolutely on the right track. Like, Andrew Lincoln actually plays
This
that
is the
character.
BBC
Even
World
if you
Service
said
on
that Emma
ABC
Freud-
News
Emma Freud
Radio.
was the script editor on Love Actually. She is also the partner of Richard Curtis, knows Richard Curtis very well, knows things about Richard Curtis, and the only reason that he won't call the first character Jamie is
ABC News with Glenn Lauder. 5 primary school children are dead and a number of others have been injured in a jumping castle incident in Tasmania's northwest. Police say wind picked the jumping castle up into the air at an end-of-year activity day at a school in Devonport, causing a separation of 10 metres. Commander Debbie Williams says support's being made available to the families and first responders who've been seen crying at the scene.
Police and emergency services were very quickly onto the scene and administered first aid. A number of the children have been taken to hospital and some are in a critical condition. This is a very tragic event and our thoughts are with the families and the wider school community.
Labor says Australians shouldn't trust the federal government's prediction that wages will go up. The Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has delivered an update on the federal budget, showing an increase in employment levels and wages in 2022. But Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers says voters should be wary of the predictions.
This is a government which is notorious for over-promising and under-delivering on wages in particular. This government's made 55 wages forecasts, and on 52 occasions wages have fallen short of what they predicted.
Sydney's Metro Theatre is a new COVID venue of concern, with authorities linking it to at least 97 infections. New South Wales Health is contacting 600 people who attended the venue last Friday night for a Taylor Swift Red Party. They're being asked to get tested and isolate for 7 days. Meanwhile, the Lunar Electric Music Festival, due to take place this Saturday in Newcastle, has been cancelled amid a surge in cases there. The state has recorded its highest daily total, 1,742 cases. Victoria now has 13 cases of the Omicron variant. The 3 latest cases all recently returned from overseas and have been in quarantine since their arrival. Meanwhile, the Premier Daniel Andrews is isolating after being tested for COVID-19 after being at the same event as a positive case. 90% of Australians aged over 16 have received 2 vaccine doses. Prime Minister Scott Morrison believes the milestone is an extraordinary achievement. He's thanked Australians for lining up to get a shot, while urging those eligible for a booster to book one in.
Today, we will go past the 90% double dose rate across the country. An extraordinary achievement for Australians. We will also today go past the 1 million booster doses already administered in Australia.
The British President of the Royal College of Emergency Medicine says hospitals are reporting staff shortages caused by Omicron infections. The UK recorded more than 78,000 new cases on Wednesday, the highest daily number since the start of the pandemic. It comes as the NHS has ordered hospitals to discharge as many patients as possible to handle the predicted surge in COVID patients. Dr. Catherine Henderson says it's a dangerous situation.
Even if we're not seeing a big rise in hospitalisations yet, we're already seeing the effect on not having the staff to run shifts properly and safely. So we're worried about patient harm coming about because we just don't have the staff.
And France is tightening restrictions on travellers from Britain to try to slow the spread of the Omicron variant. The government says only French citizens or British people living in France will be allowed to enter the country. They'll be required to provide a negative COVID test less than 24 hours before arriving. The European Union's health authority says the NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg is calling on Russia to return to diplomacy and de-escalate tension on the border with Ukraine. The United States says Russia's amassed more than 100,000 troops on Ukraine's borders, possibly in preparation for an invasion. The European Union's considering what economic sanctions they could impose on Moscow if it were to launch an attack. Mr. Stoltenberg says that further aggression will have severe consequences.
This build-up has no justification. It is provocative, it is destabilizing, and it undermines security in Europe. We call on Russia to de-escalate and to respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
And thousands of people have taken shelter from Super Typhoon Rai, which is battering the southern Philippines, bringing winds of around 175 kilometres an hour. That's the latest ABC News. To the weather around the country for Friday. Brisbane a shower or two and 29. It's currently 24. In Sydney tomorrow it'll be partly cloudy and 25. Right now 20. Canberra tomorrow mostly sunny day and 27. Right now 15 degrees. Melbourne tomorrow it'll be sunny and 31. It's currently 16. Hobart tomorrow can expect sunshine and 22. 15 right now. In Adelaide tomorrow 37 degrees and sunny. Right now 23. In Perth tomorrow, possible morning showers, a top of 23, it's currently 19. And in Darwin tomorrow, a shower or two and a possible storm, 34 the maximum, it's 31 right now in the top end. That is the latest ABC News. It's time now to head back to our broadcast partners at BBC.
You're listening to the newsroom from the BBC World Service with Charles Howell. European Union leaders are meeting in Brussels for their final summit of the year, at which they're expected to deliver another warning to Russia about the consequences of what they see as its aggressive posture towards Ukraine. Moscow denies it's planning to invade, but EU states aren't convinced. Olaf Scholz is attending for the first time as German Chancellor. Arriving for the summit, he said that Ukraine's border would need to be strengthened.
Und im Übrigen geht es natürlich auch darum, die schwierige Situation der Ukraine zu besprechen, die Frage, was ist mit Truppenbewegungen.
Incidentally, of course, this is also about discussing the difficult situation in Ukraine and the question about troop movements along the border. That is why we will emphasize again that the inviolability of borders is one of the most important foundations of peace in Europe, and that we will do everything together to ensure that this inviolability actually remains.
Chancellor Scholz, where our Brussels correspondent Jessica Parker joins me. Jessica, the EU is speaking of what it calls a thick red line that Moscow mustn't cross. But what weight can it really bring to bear over Russia?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably the key question, because he's obviously not a military power. So the talk has been from people like Ursula von der Leyen of boosting existing economic sanctions, or even looking for new ones. I think more broadly what the West is trying to do is draw this thick red line and warn of dire consequences, and emphasise, I think, the sanctions that would take effect, they say, would really come at a huge cost to President Putin and to Russia. But of course, it's easier in a sense for European nations to agree tough language, or the West to agree tough language, but when it would actually come to make decisions on those sanctions under various economic interests in play, that would almost certainly be harder.
Lots for them to talk about on that. And what reason does Moscow itself give for the fact that it's been massing troops on its border with Ukraine?
Well, as you mentioned before, Moscow, the Kremlin, I think, have been giving quite a robust defence to this, saying that they have no intention of invading Ukraine, and that they are perfectly within their rights to move troops around their own sovereign territory. Obviously, what's making people nervous here in Europe and elsewhere, and in America, in the UK, is the level of troop numbers that seem to be amassing near the Ukrainian border. So that kind of tension is ongoing, but Moscow really defending itself. I think some people suspect, some experts I've been speaking to today, talking about how this is a form of Russian diplomacy. Troop movements are a way of getting attention and then getting the West round the table and securing phone calls with important leaders to try and potentially draw concessions on issues that they are concerned about. But nobody quite knows what's going to happen, of course. Nobody quite knows what the plan is in terms of Russia, except for one President Putin.
Very briefly, Jessica, what else?
So energy prices on the summit agenda again. It was the last time, but ongoing huge concerns for many member states about soaring energy costs, and as well coronavirus, the Omicron variant. That's up for discussion as well.
Jessica Parker, thanks very much from Brussels. Typhoon Rai has made landfall in Siargao, a popular tourist island in the southern Philippines. Thousands are sheltering from the storm, which is battering the area. Winds up to 195 kilometers an hour. The Philippine Red Cross described the Category 4/5 storm as one of the strongest of the year. Our correspondent Howard Johnson is in Manila, and he told me what kind of damage the country is seeing.
We're waiting at the moment to find out really the extent of the damage, but the winds, as you say, packing up to 195 kilometers per hour, with gusts up to 230 kilometers per hour. We know that there have been storm surges in the area. There's been intense flooding in neighboring areas too. This isn't just affecting Siargao, it's now barreling across the country from east to west. It made landfall 3 times, and it's moving from this area broadly at the north of Mindanao, the southernmost island in the Philippines, across to now Leyte. And so if you can imagine a map of the Philippines, more than 7,000 islands, it's pretty much jumping from island to island and leaving a trail of destruction. How catastrophic the damage has been. The UN is saying that it is catastrophic, or that they forecast it will be, and we are just waiting now, even though it's got dark here. We will probably wait till the morning to find out really how bad Storm Rai has been.
Rai is the 15th storm to strike the Philippines this year. Is there any sign that climate change is making the storms worse and more frequent?
Well, we have heard from the International Federation of the Red Cross that they said that they are very concerned that climate change is making typhoons more ferocious and unpredictable. And earlier on in the year, I did speak with Senator Dick Gordon. He's the head of the Philippine Red Cross, and he said in his lifeline, he said he's seeing that the strength of these typhoons is getting fiercer. That at the moment we're seeing Cagayan de Oro in the south, rainwater is flooding in coastal areas. Riverside communities are being evacuated. Thousands of people are being moved out forcibly by the Philippine Coast Guard. I even saw a video of a one-year-old baby being moved in a bucket across a river in Spate.
Howard Johnson in Manila. While the Philippines prepares for further damage from storms, the United States is coping with their aftermath. President Biden has been visiting the state of Kentucky, where more than 70 people died following tornadoes at the weekend. He announced that the federal government would cover the entire cost of a 30-day cleanup operation. Our correspondent Nomi Iqbal is in Bowling Green in Kentucky, a town that was badly damaged by the storms.
The way presidents handle these sorts of disasters are always very closely scrutinised, but I have to say, one of the things that really strikes you, especially being here, is the way the community has been getting together and really trying to pick people up. I'm joined here now by Travis, who's a resident here in Kentucky. Just tell us what it's been like in terms of how people have been pulling together.
I think it's just kind of indicative of the culture here, and it's a blessing to see, and I really appreciate that the community can kind of support one another, because we all need help, and I need help every day, and I needed help last week, and this week these people need a little more help than they did last week, but that's why we're here.
This neighbourhood has experienced a lot of tragedy, hasn't it? You were telling me before about one particular neighbour who has gone through unimaginable grief.
Yeah, I mean, within 100 yards of us, there's a home that all the members of the family passed away during the storm, and then another one that they lost 2 children, and they're still looking for another one. And you know, the grief that is unimaginable. I have 4 children of my own, and I don't understand how they can deal with that, but God put me here today, and I hope to serve those people well.
And President Biden's obviously here. He has said that he would promise whatever support you guys need, at federal level. How important is it to hear that, and what more do you want from the president?
I don't know that I need anything from him, and I don't know that anybody in the community does. I think prayers are one of the most important things right now, and from the federal level, I really don't know, because